Imagine you're looking at an ink blot on a piece of paper.
Like a Rorschach test, right?
Exactly. And to most of us, it's just a shape. Maybe it looks like a butterfly or a cloud or something.
Yeah, nothing threatening.
Right. But to someone carrying the weight of severe unresolved trauma, that simple, ambiguous ink blot might trigger a suddenly racing heart. A massive spike in blood pressure and a sensation of pure, inescapable terror.
It's a complete hijack of the nervous system.
It really is. And, the reason why is because we have completely misunderstood what trauma actually is. For generations, we've treated traumatic stress like it's just a really bad memory.
Right, like a ghost haunting the mind.
Yeah, exactly. But the sources we're unpacking today reveal something fundamentally different. Trauma isn't just in your head. It's a literal physical restructuring of your brain and your entire nervous system.
It is the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters, honestly. Treating an overwhelming, life-altering experience as just a quote-unquote bad memory completely misses the physiological reality.
Because it's a physical change.
Exactly. The brain's architecture literally physically changes.
And that is the mission of our deep dive today. We're zooming in specifically on the core concepts from Chapter 4 of Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's groundbreaking work, The Body Keeps the Score.
Such an incredible chapter.
It really is. Our goal is to give you, the listener, a completely jargon-free, actionable manual to your own nervous system.
And we should say right up front, you don't need to be a combat veteran or a survivor of a horrific accident for this to apply to you.
Oh, totally.
If you've ever, say, completely frozen up during a public speaking presentation or snapped at your partner over a seemingly minor inconvenience.
Which we've all done.
Right. That means your body's alarm system hijacked you. Understanding these concepts is the key to understanding why we all react the way we do when stressed and how to actually regain control.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we can understand how severe stress breaks the brain, we first have to understand how the brain processes everyday normal threats, right?
Yeah, we have to look at the brain's internal security system. And the text uses 3 brilliant, simple metaphors to map this out.
I love these metaphors.
They're great. It's the cook, the smoke detector, and the watchtower.
So what exactly is the cook doing in this scenario?
Well, the cook is the thalamus. Think of it as a master relay station located deep inside your brain. Right now, as you're listening to this, sensory information is just flooding your system.
Is constant data.
Exactly. You're seeing the light in your room. You're hearing the cadence of our voices. Maybe you smell coffee brewing in the kitchen.
You feel the texture of the chair you're sitting on.
Right. That's a massive amount of fragmented data. And all those separate, raw sensations travel straight to the cook.
And the cook stirs them up.
Stirring the pot, yeah. The cook takes all those disparate ingredients and blends them into a cohesive, fully blended autobiographical soup.
Autobiographical soup. That's such a great phrase.
It creates an integrated, continuous experience that tells your conscious mind, this is what is happening to me right now in this specific room.
So the cook makes the soup. It creates our reality of the present moment. But that soup doesn't just sit there, does it? The cook has to pass that info along.
Right. It actually passes the sensory data in 2 different directions simultaneously.
Okay.
One path goes down into the emotional brain, specifically to the amygdala, which the text calls the smoke detector.
The unconscious alarm system.
Exactly. It's lightning fast.
Yeah.
The other path goes up into the conscious rational brain, specifically the medial prefrontal cortex.
Which is the watchtower.
That's the watchtower, yes.
I want to make sure we're visualizing this clearly for everyone. It operates almost exactly like a home security system.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
So the smoke detector is the loud, blaring alarm in the hallway. If it senses smoke, or really any hint of danger, it doesn't pause to analyze the situation.
It just screams.
It just screams. It floods your bloodstream with stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, getting your heart pumping, muscles tight, so you can immediately run or fight.
And it does this before you even consciously know what you're reacting to.
Right. Meanwhile, the watchtower is the homeowner sleeping upstairs. The alarm wakes them up. They check the security camera on their phone, look down at the living room and say, oh, wait, that's not a burglar? That's just the cat knocking over a vase.
Yeah.
And then the homeowner of the watchtower sends a signal down to turn the alarm off.
What's fascinating here is the evolutionary brilliance of this system. The pathway from the cook to the smoke detector is what neuroscientists call the low road.
Low road, okay.
And it operates in sheer microseconds. The pathway up to the watchtower is the high road, and it takes several milliseconds longer for that complex sensory information to reach your conscious awareness.
Hold on, though. If the smoke detector is so incredibly fast, why do we even have a watchtower?
Whoa.
I mean, it honestly seems like a biological design flaw to have a rational brain that takes milliseconds longer to wake up. Why not just have the conscious brain react instantly?
It's an evolutionary trade-off, really, between speed and accuracy. Processing complex, logical thought takes time. It takes metabolic energy.
Okay, that makes sense.
In a life-or-death situation, taking the time to consciously analyze a threat will get you killed. If you're hiking in the woods and see a long, curved, dark shape on the ground, your smoke detector registers the pattern of a snake.
And you just jump back.
Right. Your body physically jumps backward before your brain has even formed the word snake.
Wow.
A few milliseconds later, your slower, rational watchtower comes online, analyzes the texture, sees it isn't moving, and says, relax, it's just a curved stick.
So that slight delay is a survival mechanism.
Absolutely. Our bodies are literally programmed to start running before our rational minds even know why we're running.
The body moves first, the brain catches up. But biology isn't flawless, right? If this system is so finely tuned by evolution, what happens when it encounters a situation it wasn't designed for?
That's where things go wrong.
How does this sophisticated security system actually break?
It breaks when a threat becomes too overwhelming and critically inescapable.
Inescapable.
Yes, the entire fight-or-flight system is designed for action. You fight the predator or you flee from it. But when you're faced with inescapable shock,
Like being physically pinned down.
pinned down, trapped in a vehicle, completely overpowered, when that happens, that normal biological response is thwarted.
So the alarm is blaring, but you can't leave the house.
Precisely. The brain keeps secreting massive amounts of stress chemicals. The electrical circuits keep firing, screaming at the muscles to move, but the physical action is blocked.
So the cortisol and adrenaline just build up.
They reach such toxic, overwhelming levels that they essentially short-circuit the brain's sequencing centers.
Let's get specific about that short circuit, because the source text gives us a fascinating look at the mechanisms here. Under that level of inescapable terror, the cookin drops the soup.
The thalamus simply cannot process the overwhelming flood of sensory data.
It just gives up.
It shuts down its blending function, yeah. Because of this, those sights, sounds, smells, and physical sensations, they're no longer stirred into a cohesive story with a beginning, middle, and end.
You don't get a blended soup anymore.
Nope.
You just get a mouthful of raw salt, followed by a bite of dry flour.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. The memory is encoded in the brain not as a cohesive narrative of, this terrible thing happened to me in the past.
Right.
It's encoded as isolated, uncontextualized sensory fragments. The smell of burning rubber, a sudden blinding flash of light, a specific tone of voice.
And while the cook is dropping the ingredients, the watchtower goes completely dark.
Completely offline.
The conscious, rational part of the brain loses its ability to look down at the body and say, the danger has passed. It loses the ability to filter out irrelevant info.
Which leaves the smoke detector stuck in permanent overdrive.
It just keeps blaring.
Yeah, and the text illustrates this breakdown with a remarkable case study. There's a man named Stan who's involved in a horrific car crash.
Right, he and a woman named Ute were driving
on a highway toward Detroit. They hit a wall of dense fog, slammed on the brakes, and an 18-wheeler rear-ended their vehicle.
Just a devastating wreck.
Months later, Stan participates in a research study where he goes into a functional MRI scanner. The researchers play an audio script detailing the crash to trigger his memory of the event.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The physiological response captured by that scanner is it's astounding.
It really is.
When the memory was triggered, Stan's brain didn't look like a brain that was remembering a past event. It lit up exactly as if the 18-wheeler was smashing into him right then and there inside the MRI tube.
His amygdala, the smoke detector, was a bright, frantic red spot of activity on the monitor.
His blood pressure skyrocketed, his heart raced, he began sweating profusely.
His brain sent a massive signal to his adrenal glands to dump adrenaline into his bloodstream because it genuinely believed he was about to die.
We think about the implications of this. The emotional brain literally cannot tell time.
It has no concept of time.
To the smoke detector, there is no such concept as the past. The trauma is always happening in the present tense.
Which is why survivors can't just, quote-unquote, get over it.
Right.
This totally flips how we typically view trauma.
Right.
When a combat veteran hears a car backfire on a quiet suburban street and dives to the ground, they aren't merely remembering an explosive device from a decade ago.
They're reliving it.
As far as their amygdala is concerned, the year is still 2006, and they are currently under attack. You cannot use logic to talk someone out of a physiological response when the logical part of their brain, the watchtower, has been knocked entirely offline.
It reframes everything. It explains why ordinary, everyday things can trigger such extreme, bewildering reactions.
Exactly.
A loud noise, a specific brand of cologne, or, like we mentioned at the start, an ink blot on a psychological test.
Yes, the Rorschach test.
If an ink blot happens to share the vague visual shape of a weapon or a wound, the watchtower isn't online to filter that info and say, hey, it's just ink on paper.
The smoke detector only sees the shape, assumes the threat is imminent, and sounds the full alarm.
The person goes into a full-body fight-or-flight response over a piece of paper.
Because those sensory fragments of the past intrude into the present, hijacking the body. The brain's threat detection system has been fundamentally recalibrated to see danger everywhere.
So Stan's reaction makes sense if you consider that his body was trying to mobilize and escape, right? Racing heart, sweating, high blood pressure.
Right, mobilizing for action.
But biology is incredibly resourceful. What does the brain do when fighting or running is physically impossible? Does the smoke detector just burn the house down with stress chemicals?
Well, that brings us to Ute.
The woman who is in the exact same vehicle as Stan.
Right. Ute's response in the scanner reveals the brain's final, most extreme, and arguably most dangerous defense mechanism.
The freeze response.
Yes. When Ute listened to the audio script of the highway crash in the MRI machine, her brain did not light up with panic.
Like Stan's did.
Right. In fact, almost every area of her brain went completely dark. She didn't experience a racing heart or elevated blood pressure. When the researchers pulled her out and asked how she felt, she said she felt exactly how she felt during the accident itself. She felt absolutely nothing.
Wait, so feeling completely numb, staring blankly ahead, showing zero emotion, that isn't a sign that someone is handling things well or that they're quote-unquote over it?
Not at all. It is actually a severe, desperate survival response.
That's wild.
It's the ultimate emergency backup system, and it's governed by what we call the reptilian brain.
Okay, the reptilian brain.
When mammals are trapped and the smoke detector's massive dump of fight-or-flight adrenaline fails to help them escape, the nervous system realizes that continuing to expend energy is useless.
So it just stops.
It resorts to an ancient evolutionary tactic. It shuts the entire organism down. It drastically reduces metabolism, drops the heart rate to a crawl, and floods the system with endogenous opioids.
Endogenous opioids, so like natural painkillers.
Exactly, to completely numb the body to the physical and emotional pain that is about to happen. It's a state of profound collapse and dissociation. You essentially play dead.
The brain takes over and says, we cannot escape this reality, so I am going to disconnect your consciousness from your physical body so you don't have to feel the agony of what is happening.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, while that mechanism might save your sanity in the exact moment of a horrific event,
Right.
This shutdown mode is incredibly destructive in the long term. Trauma, when it results in this kind of chronic collapse, literally robs people of feeling fully alive.
Because you can't selectively numb emotions, can you?
You cannot. The nervous system doesn't have a surgical scalpel for feelings.
Right.
If you subconsciously shut down your brain's sensory systems to numb the terror, the rage, and the helplessness, you accidentally numb your capacity for joy, for purpose, and for physical connection.
You become dead to the world in order to survive it.
Yes. Your mind goes permanently blank. You feel like you're walking through a dense fog, and you lose the ability to meaningfully engage with the people you love most.
It casts so much light on behaviors that society often judges incredibly harshly. People who seem checked out, detached, or those who struggle with severe depression or dissociation after a horrible event.
Exactly.
They aren't weak. They aren't just not trying hard enough. Their reptilian brain is just stuck in the ultimate survival mode, constantly playing dead.
Which is exactly why healing requires a radically different approach than we traditionally use.
Right.
If we've accurately diagnosed the mechanical problem, a hyperactive smoke detector, a completely offline watchtower, and a body trapped in either frantic panic or deadened shutdown, how do we actually repair the alarm system?
We need the actionable manual, and the source material is adamant that we need practical solutions. It outlines two primary avenues to restore balance to the brain's architecture: top-down regulation and bottom-up regulation.
Top-down regulation focuses entirely on strengthening the watchtower, the medial prefrontal cortex.
A rational brain.
Right. The goal is to increase your conscious brain's capacity to monitor your body's physical sensations without getting hijacked by the emotion attached to them.
The text points to mindfulness meditation as a core practice here. But, how does just sitting and thinking about your body physically alter a broken alarm system?
Yeah. Mindfulness physically thickens the neural pathways in the medial prefrontal cortex. It trains the brain to observe the internal environment objectively.
Okay, so building the muscle.
Exactly. When your chest suddenly tightens, instead of the smoke detector immediately spiraling that sensation into a full-blown panic attack, a strengthened watchtower can notice the sensation and internally narrate.
Like, okay, my chest feels tight.
My chest feels tight, my breathing is shallow. That is just a physical sensation. It is temporary, and I am not currently in danger. It creates a crucial, microscopic buffer of time between the physical stimulus and the emotional reaction.
That makes a lot of sense for top-down regulation, using the conscious mind to monitor and soothe the body. But bottom-up regulation sounds even more foundational, especially if your conscious brain is repeatedly going offline.
Bottom-up regulation involves bypassing the rational brain entirely and calming the raw physical nervous system directly.
You're communicating safety to the primitive reptilian brain.
Yes, not through logic or vocabulary, but through the physical body itself. This is achieved through breath, movement, and touch.
Breathing is a massive focus in Chapter 4, and the text points out something we rarely think about. Breathing is one of the very few physical functions in the human body that operates under automatic control. Like, we breathe while we sleep without trying, but it's also under conscious control.
We can choose to alter its rhythm at any moment.
Right.
And altering that rhythm is a direct hack into the nervous system. The text highlights that deep, slow exhalations act as a literal physical brake on the autonomic nervous system.
A physical break.
When you exhale slowly, you stimulate the vagus nerve, which activates the parasympathetic nervous system. That system sends a chemical signal to your racing heart, telling it to slow down.
Wow.
You're sending a physical message of safety from your lungs and your heart straight up the spinal cord, directly into the brain's smoke detector.
So if breath, controlled movement, and touch are how we actually calm the primitive brain and override the alarm, why is our default treatment for trauma almost always sitting in a sterile room, in a chair, and just talking about it?
This raises an important question, doesn't it? It's the glaring flaw in how we've approached mental health for decades.
Yeah.
How can we possibly expect someone to talk their way out of trauma if the speaking part of their brain, Broca's area, the center for speech production, literally shuts down when they're triggered?
It's impossible.
The source material makes it clear that traditional talk therapy, while helpful for understanding the timeline of your story, is severely limited when it comes to changing the physiological reality of the nervous system.
Because the rational speaking brain simply doesn't control the alarm system.
The body itself must viscerally experience safety. You cannot just cognitively understand that you're safe. You have to feel it in your gut, your heart, and your muscles.
Yeah.
Trauma turns your own body into an enemy camp filled with terrifying warning signs. Bottom-up therapies, things like yoga, rhythmic drumming, martial arts, or therapeutic physical touch work, because they bypass the broken watchtower.
Just going straight to the body.
Moving your body in a controlled, rhythmic way sends a new biological message up to the brain. I can move. I am in control. I am not physically trapped anymore. It overrides the biological memory of helplessness.
So what does this all mean? When I try to synthesize all of this, the analogy I keep coming back to is the process of taming a deeply frightened animal.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Imagine you find a terrified, shaking dog hiding under a porch after a thunderstorm. You don't slide a spreadsheet under the porch listing all the logical reasons why the storm is over.
Right, you don't try to reason with the animal.
The dog doesn't possess the hardware for logic. It only speaks the language of survival.
Exactly.
So what do? You lower your physical posture. You use a soft, soothing tone of voice. You offer a gentle touch if the animal allows it. You use slow, rhythmic movements.
Communicating absolute safety through sensory input.
Exactly. What this deep dive is telling us is that we have to treat our own nervous systems with that exact same primal physical care.
We have to speak the language of the nervous system, and that language is rhythm, breath, and physical sensation.
It is incredibly empowering when you finally grasp the mechanics of it. Our survival anatomy is astoundingly powerful. It's the reason our ancestors survived unimaginable dangers.
But it requires maintenance.
Yes. When the alarm system gets stuck, we can't just ignore it, numb it with distractions, or try to think our way out of it. To truly heal, we have to engage the body, not just the mind.
As we wrap up this deep dive, there is a final provocative thought I want to leave you with, building directly on what the sources tell us about the nervous system.
Let's hear it.
The text notes that a lack of coherence between our breathing and our heart rate keeps the body's alarm system constantly on edge. It continuously signals to the brain that we're in danger.
Right.
Now consider how most of us live and work today. Think about how often you sit completely frozen at your desk, staring intently at a glowing screen, entirely motionless, taking shallow, ragged breaths for hours on end.
Oh, wow.
Given what we now know about the freeze response, and how the body registers physical immobility and shallow breathing as the ultimate signs of inescapable threat, could our modern, motionless lifestyles be tricking our ancient reptilian brains into thinking we are constantly trapped in survival mode? Something for you to explore on your own.
An alarm system that can't tell time, a rational brain that goes offline when we need it most, and a nervous system waiting for us to finally speak its physical language. Thank you for joining us today as we unpack the hidden mechanics of human survival. Keep learning, keep breathing, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.